Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I'm your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Elle Marr. Elle is the #1 Amazon charts bestselling author of Strangers We Know, Lies We Bury, and The Missing Sister. Originally from Sacramento, Elle graduated from UC San Diego before moving to France, where she earned a master's degree from the Sorbonne University in Paris. She now lives and writes in Oregon with her family. Publishers Weekly said, Marr is a writer to watch. Yay! Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And we're going to talk today about The Family Bones, which I gobbled up, and a super fast, twisty, fun read. Can you tell our listeners about The Family Bones, Elle?
Yes, I am very excited to. Thank you. The Family Bones is a locked room thriller set in the rural backwoods of Eastern Oregon at a family reunion among psychopaths, which goes horribly wrong, as they are wont to do. Throw in a true crime podcaster, stay-at-home mom, Birdie Tan, who investigates cases with minority victims who are not given as much media attention as they might otherwise. And I'm hoping that it's a compelling read for readers.
Oh my God, yes, it's such a fun read. And I'm sorry, can we just go back to that, a family reunion of psychopaths? Because that kind of says it all. Like I can't imagine why that could go wrong, right? Can you talk, do you know or remember the inspiration for the story, like where the seed came from?
Yes, and I'm so grateful that you feel that way about the logline, because I was like, if I could create a book around this,
Yes,
I think I would like to read it. And I mean, at the end of the day, isn't that what we want to do? Like, we're trying to write books that we will want to read 8,000 times,
exactly.
and then hopefully readers will want to read too.
Exactly.
I got the idea from research during my last book about psychopathy, about the broader antisocial personality disorder, and was trying to figure out the onset of my character's psychopathy, and learned we really don't know much about it. The medical science community is very vague on what are the origins of psychopathy, if there's anything that indicates it, and really there's a serious tug of war between nature versus nurture. Families that have instances, evidence of psychopathy or sociopathy, tends to have greater possibilities of it showing up in their line further down or maybe in the past. But otherwise, a lot of it is suggested to be environmental and ergo also treatable to a certain extent. So it gave me a lot of ideas, but the one that stuck out to me was, what if psychopathy or sociopathy, the greater ASPD spectrum, showed up in one specific family, so known that the true crime community would, have their name at the tip of their tongues at all times. I just thought I could sit with that. I could sit with that for 300 pages.
Yeah,
and a year and a half.
I know, absolutely. And I mean, it's so interesting because you mentioned in the book about this 23 being this like key age. Can you talk about that? Because I had never heard that. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, there's a little bit of artistic license there, but it is sociopathy and psychopathy are suggested to, I guess if you have any of those synapses, those tendencies, they or that cognitive, I guess, place or possibility, it's really going to mature around your early 20s and then late 20s, I think, for males. So it's not anything that's set in stone. It's a very fluid diagnosis that, for certain people it's very treatable and others not as much. But I wanted to try and create a timeline where my characters would feel a sense of relief and also a sense of urgency.
Right. So tell us about our main character, Olivia Erickson. She's a little bit of she doesn't necessarily want to go to the family reunion, right? So, I mean, because she is right at this age. So can you just give us a little hint as to why, what the driving force is? Because I think that's really interesting for her to go.
Yes, definitely. She's conflicted, of course. She's a graduate student in psychology. That's her coping mechanism of how she's been able to grow up into a healthy adult, knowing that she's got this kind of genetic possibility in her background, given the generations of evidence that suggests she's got ASPD in her family. So she's really studied it to get her hands around it, around what you know might lie in her genes somewhere, and she wants to study it up close with primary sources. As a psychologist, as an academic, she really wants to understand something. I think that's true for many of us. Once you see the smoke monster in Lost, it's a lot less scary.
Right.
The TV show Lost. Once you, even like during Stranger Things, right? Like once you see the monster, the moment right before the monster is revealed is so much more tense. And then once you see it, you're like, oh, I could handle that in some degree, or like whatever weapon I have could handle that.
Exactly.
And so she really wants to speak to her grandfather and her aunts and uncles who have grown up in this, and some of them managing to become very normal functioning people in society.
Yes, exactly. And then, the other main character, this is interesting comment that the other main character, Birdie, makes. She says, I'm a woman who has everything in the world I could possibly desire. And I should crawl back beneath the sheets beside my loving husband, but instead I stare at the inbox of my forum messages, wearing my, sorry, I mistyped that, willing my computer to ping with a reply. So it is said that, more women are interested in true crime than men, right? So why do you suppose that is? Like, what about true crime is compelling for anybody? And what about it do you think is more compelling for women than it is for men?
That's interesting that you said that, because last night I was thinking about the Saturday Night Live sketch. I don't know if you caught that, where it was from like a year or two ago, when everyone was very much still at home, and it was about like women like getting ready for Friday night, like singing a song, like all of the women cast characters getting gussied up or getting settled in at home from a night at home with my just myself, and there were like sexual undertones, and then everyone turns on true crime, everyone turns on a documentary, everyone turns on their favorite movie or TV show, and I think that really speaks to to your point, how true crime is so pervasive, just really on everyone's dashboard these days, whether it's your Netflix dashboard or what else. And I think it comes down to our fascination with the unknowable. How could someone commit those crimes? And then also our fascination with the whole reason we consume escapism, to think about like, what would we do in those situations?
Right. I think there's a part of us that feels like if we can see it played out, we'll know when it happens to us how to get out of it or whatever. I do think that's part of the attraction of any crime show, and it's probably part of the reason I write. Maybe it's part of the reason you write. That there's this idea that I'm the worst things possible are happening inside my head, so I'm putting them out there so that I can solve them and end up with the right ending, I guess, right? The right result.
Yeah.
So
I feel the same way, definitely.
Yeah. So one of the things you talk about is the sort of idea of the psychopaths aren't they're not killing machines. They're basically if they learn early enough that there are early consequences, then that sort of deters their deviant. But if they don't, then they learn it in jail. So this is my first Elle Marr book, I have to confess. But so tell me about how this fits into the sort of way what you write about in general in your other books. Is this a theme for you, sort of exploring the psychology of characters and of why people do bad things, or what, how does this book fit into your publishing career?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I just want to say I am a huge Danielle Girard fan. I cannot believe that you've written so many books. They're all excellent.
Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you. I loved it. I'll look forward to more.
Well, thank you. I definitely, in my writing, this is only my fourth book, so I'm still creating my portfolio, I guess.
Only your fourth book. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who would say that's a lot of books, but yes, I understand.
I felt silly just saying it.
You have many more books to write, but you've written 4 books, and that's very impressive. So sorry, I interrupted.
No, thank you. I would say that mental health is a theme in my books. I hope to destigmatize it when it comes up. It's not not all of my books are about mental health or the spectrum of it, but occasionally my books have touched on it, on themes of mental health, and I always hope to destigmatize it, or at the very least of destigmatizing, therapy and the importance of self-care.
Yeah.
Because I really think therapy is just so great for everybody, no matter what stage of life you're in.
Absolutely.
And
we should all be in
and so-
therapy. There's no question.
especially, yes, after the last few years, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think this book is very heavily centered on psychology and mental health awareness, and both cognitive conditions, neurotypical conditions, and neurodivergent conditions. It was important to me to not paint psychopaths as these big bad monsters in this book, because I have kind of done that in other books of mine.
Yeah, fair. You want to even it out now. Yeah.
I want to even it out. I want to point out that truly ASPD is not some, scarlet red letter A. It's a condition that can be treated in most cases. And in terms of like social deviance, we're all born a little socially deviant. We all have to be tamed a little bit. I like to say, as a mother of two small kids, to conform to society. So it's not an unusual idea that we are all learning how to navigate this world together. And
Absolutely.
I hope that's what the book kind of touches on.
Yes. Well, and maybe to avoid family reunions of psychopaths. That's another one I would put on the list of things I learned in the book. But so you said you say ASPD, and I don't know what that stands for.
Yes, it's antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know it before either.
Yeah. Okay, I've just not heard it as ASPD. Okay, that makes sense. So basically, that is that the psychopaths are under that umbrella? Is that the idea?
Yes, and let me just say, I also taught psychology in France. Not a psychologist. No reason to be. Don't take my word for any of this. Right, but I did teach psychology in France.
Well, there you go. Well, I mean, you taught. You must know. You know a lot more than I do, for sure.
Psychology. But yes, ASPD is the umbrella that psychopathy, sociopathy, borderline personality disorder, and I'm sure several other disorders sit underneath. It's just the broader term for it, ASPD.
Yes, makes sense. And I love the idea that, I love the way you utilize the idea that some of this is in our genes, because I think it is. There are so many things that are sort of written into our genetics that we don't appreciate or recognize. And the idea that Olivia would be like, I think I might be violent because of this, because it's in my genes. But it doesn't seem like there's anything in her that's like, oh, I did this. It's not like she was like, oh, I killed that person, maybe I'm a psychopath. It's more like and you can imagine it. It's like, if it doesn't exist in her that she can see. It's like if you're somebody in your family had breast cancer, you'd always be worried about, was it showing up? But this is so much harder, because if you're living inside the head of a psychopath, at what point do you actually realize you're a psychopath, right?
Right. And also, like, to your point, like, if someone commits like an egregious crime or murder or something, that doesn't equate to being a psychopath. It means you did a very terrible thing.
Right.
So it is like this very gray area that Olivia really delves into as a psychologist, trying to wrap her head around like why some of her relatives have done certain things and many others have done nothing at all. Mm-hmm. And certainly she's lived a very mundane existence aside from her social media fame to this point until the reunion. So it is like, what lies dormant within each of us is a question that I love exploring, along with, how well do you know someone that you've known your whole life, or that you've been married to for 15, 20 years? How well do we know anyone?
How well do we know anyone? It's so true. I agree. I think it's really fun to explore sort of, if you were pushed, what would you do? Like, the question is like, you have small children, so you know this. Like, I would kill to defend my children, no question, right? They're 23 and 21 now, so they probably have to defend me, but you know what I mean? There's to me, there's no question about certain lines, and then everything else feels a bit like, no, I would never do that. But I don't know, right? Push to something.
The right circumstance.
It's impossible to answer. So tell us a little bit about your process. This is your fourth book, or do you have has it been sort of the same each time? You plot, you don't plot? How does that work for you?
Yes, I used to be a very wayward writer. I would just kind of write, and I would discover things along the way. And then I was overjoyed to land a book contract and realize you can't contract and write like that. Or at least I can't. Under my tight timelines, I can't. And so now I know the beginning. Actually, I don't even know the beginning. I know the end. And then I plot out the main plot points, the main story structure points, and then discover a lot from there. Oftentimes the middle is totally different than what I envision. And it's a combination of listening to my beta readers and really listening to what I know is interesting and what I myself am bored by. Frequently I would just push it off until my editor makes me change it. And then I'll be like, you and I are in agreement. I was just there 3 months ago in denial.
That's right. That's interesting. Yeah. So you have a good editor you work with. It sounds like you work with Charlotte Hersher. I've heard great things about her.
Yes. Yes. For The Family Bones. She was amazing. My other 3 books were edited by Caitlin Alexander. Both were really incredible help to the stories that I've written. And I really love what Charlotte did with The Family Bones. She was so great.
I think that's an interesting thing because I think a lot of, newbie writers, they don't consider sort of like the importance of a really good editor. And it's wonderful to have a critique group, but the experience of a seasoned editor is a totally different thing. And it can really just change a book immensely. So when you say you plot out the plot points, are you thinking like the 8 beats kind of thing? Can you tell readers what that is? Because I don't know, we've talked about it occasionally, but not that often on the podcast.
Yes, and truly, I think every writer's process is different. This is just kind of how mine loosely works. Reading Save the Cat Writes a Novel was really helpful to me, and it discusses like the 8 beats, and also the beats that comprise a TV show or a movie. I find the first major plot point about 25% of the way in. I find the pinch point about 33% of the way in, or 37% of the way in, something like that. And then the 50% mark, the 60, like I'm a little mathematical in that I do want to know exactly where the percentage points are. And then I ensure that the pages also line up with those points so that, it kind of hits for the reader, hopefully.
Right.
Where I desire it to hit, whether it does elsewhere is great. But I try to at least map out my punching notes, my ones that I want to hit.
Yeah, I think and do the characters come from, so can you tell us, did Olivia come first or did Birdie come first? Like, do you remember how that evolved? Because they're 2, very different, but, complementary characters.
Yes, thank you. I started with Olivia and the Ericksons 100%. I actually wrote the whole book almost. I wrote the entire book actually with just the Ericksons, and then I went back and thought there's something missing in addition to me not hitting my contract at 80,000 words from my publisher. I need to add another 20,000 words. I realized that there was something missing, another perspective, and really a perspective that is something very important to me. Ideally, I guess the perspective of minority victims in the media and in true crime. I wanted to take this true crime family and then also juxtapose it with this other part of true crime that's maybe not giving as much airtime, and that's cases of minority victims. And it's something that we've really seen a more attention given to the last few years. But I always try to write characters that I think are true to my life, that I see in my life, that I wish that I saw more of growing up, and that I think reflect the world that I live in, which is a pretty diverse and interesting world. So it was first Olivia, who I love, and loved writing her, and then Birdie, who I also loved in totally different ways, who I was really inspired by true crime podcasters, who I think are just incredible. Podcasters in general, so hats off to you.
Oh, well, that's really, the true crime podcasters, that is they're doing so much work behind the scenes, right? To the research and the trying to actually solve those crimes. It's really incredible. So, now, do you have and not everybody does this, so you can feel free to say I have no idea, but I always think it's fun to talk about when they make your book into a movie, right? Because of course that's what we all want to imagine, right? Who would play Birdie and who would play Olivia? Have you thought about that? Not everybody thinks about that, so I apologize if I caught you Uh, you're like, I haven't dreamed that far yet.
I haven't dreamed that far yet, but off the top of my head, this is like real time brainstorming
Hey,
with you.
I love it.
I would love Dove Cameron to play Olivia Erickson. I
Okay.
don't know if you're familiar with Dove Cameron, but she's, and I'm really hoping I'm not messing this up right now.
That's
She was
okay. You're
in
good at
Disney.
we're
She was in the
just chatting. We're not, there's no one's going to fact check us. We could be
I hope
totally
not.
wrong. We're putting it out there in the world. We could be totally wrong. She was in what?
Thank you. Safe space. This is a safe space. Thank you.
Yes, safe space.
Yeah, she was in the Disney made for TV movie, The Descendants, and she played, I think she played Sleeping Beauty's daughter.
Oh,
Sleeping Beauty's
okay.
daughter. And so she's very blonde, very blue-eyed,
Yes.
very angelic looking face,
Mhm.
very beautiful. And then Birdie Tan, I would love, oh gosh, I mean like Philippa Sue, because I love her from Hamilton. I have my Hamilton
Yes.
poster right here.
Yes. Oh God, you do. I loved Hamilton. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
She would be amazing.
I would.
That's so
I
fun.
mean, dream big. So that would be it.
Dream.
Thanks for asking.
Well, yeah, dream big or don't dream at all, right? So,
Yeah.
what can you tell us what you're working on now?
Yes, I am working on. I just sent off my manuscript to my beta readers for my next book, The Alone Time, which is a psychological thriller about a plane crash that occurred in the Pacific Northwest about 25 years ago, took the lives of two parents and allowed their two daughters, who were children at the time, to survive for 3 months. Flash forward 25 years later, and there are some new revelations that come out that then threaten the version of events that the sisters have been telling ever since then.
That
so I'm
sounds super fun. I love that.
Thank you.
And do you have a date for that yet? So
spring 2024. I have to turn it in to my editor March 1st. So it's coming.
Yeah. So you are hard at work. I love it. You really far. It seems like you're well. That seems fast, right? Doesn't seem like you're ahead of the. I never feel like I had a book turned in a whole year in advance. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm hopeful.
Yes, of course. Well, so now tell us just a tiny bit more about so you have two small children. How do you schedule your writing time? How do you make that work?
Oh, that's a question I ask myself every day.
Yes,
How do I
know.
make this work?
How am I going to
As
make
I'm
this
sure your
work
guests
today?
have said.
Yeah, it's a big challenge to be a mom and a working writer, of course.
Absolutely. To have deadlines and toddlers is very incongruent.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm super, super fortunate to have my husband, who is incredibly supportive of my writing deadlines. So he also works from home, so we're able to kind of trade off when needed in watching the kids. I wake up early before the kids wake up, and then I write during nap time. Honestly, I have very good sleepers.
Good.
I'm very fortunate
I know.
to have.
That is
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, good for you. I
Yeah.
mean, I think you make it work, right? It's like you want to be a writer, and obviously you want to be the best mom you can be, and so you make it work. And that's super impressive. Well, this is so exciting. So the Psychopath Family Reunion, you have to see this. I love when Publishers Weekly says something like that. Marr is a writer to watch. So exciting. Lots of good things coming. This is out March 7th. And so our interview is actually going to post on March 2nd. So at this moment, you have like just a couple days left to order the Family Bones, and they can deliver it to your door. I always think that's amazing on the day that it is published. So it's been so fun to talk to you, Elle. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And if I could just add one more thing, just to toot my own horn, I just last week learned that Publishers Weekly actually gave a starred review to the Family Bones. So I'm super happy.
Those are highly coveted and hard to come by. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was such a great chat. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, it was wonderful to have you. Everybody go check out the Family Bones if you want to read about a psychopath family. And there is so much fun stuff in that book on these people who are locked at that it's like the Erickson estate, right? It's like the old family estate. It's lots of twists and turns.
Thank you so, so much. I hope that, thank you so much for reading too. I know you have a busy schedule, so I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, the podcast is such a labor of love. I love reading all the books and getting to talk to all the authors. So thank you for joining me today. Everybody, this has been Killer Women with our guest Elle Marr and the Family Bones. And I'm Danielle, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.